From Chicago's Can TV, a look at the week's events is reported in the newspapers, in the blogs, and online, and on radio and TV. This is Chicago Newsroom.
And hello again. Welcome to another edition of Chicago Newsroom here on Can TV. My name's Ken Davis, and glad to have you with us today. In case you looked the other way for a couple of days, or maybe you just took a couple of days off, the next 4 years of Chicago's political, economic, and otherwise history was written this week in a lot of ways. What you're going to be experiencing in Chicago government really began to come together this week. We began to see some of the bones of this structure, and we're going to focus on that today because we want to see what this new Rahm Emanuel administration is going to be. We have some answers. We've been asking about it for weeks. Now we kind of know some things. We also have Blog 02 underway today, some jury selection going on, and lots of things to talk about. And so what we decided today is to just bring a bunch of people around the table who are really good with opinions, people who have been observing for a while and kind of, they've got things to say. And I'm referring to Monroe Anderson, back again. Monroe, a journalist in Chicago who's now cyber-columnist, blogger, communicator extraordinaire. You can, again, one of these folks that you can just sort of pick up your iPhone and there he is.
And
right?
Facebook fanatic.
And Facebook fanatic, that's for sure. So Monroe is joining us today. We also have Lorraine Forte coming back again from Catalyst magazine, editor-in-chief. And we specifically wanted to have you on the show because we've got so much educational stuff to talk about. Steve Rhodes also joining us from the Beachwood Reporter. And Steve is also a journalist who's worked in Chicago for a long time but lives mostly online now. Founder and union steward at his own place over there, the Beachwood Reporter. So the word of the week, the name of the week is Jean-Claude Brizard.
Yep.
And we'll give you the honor of starting, Lorraine. The mayor introduced him but wouldn't let him speak. And within less than half a news cycle, we were just swamped with all these stories from Rochester.
Well, it's interesting that you called him the mayor, because he's certainly acting like the mayor.
Right.
Mayor Daley, please. I'm very sorry that was a slip of the tongue.
Well, he's certainly taking charge, and he had, Emanuel had promised to reach out and do a national search, and he did. People were interviewed from other places. This name, Jean-Claude Brizard, had been talked about in the education community, and there were whispers that he was being considered a reform-minded person who pissed off teachers in Rochester, which is a much smaller district, only 32,000 students. Got a big no confidence vote from teachers there. So he swept in. Emanuel brought him in. He brought in someone from Denver. He kept some people. He completely overhauled the school board and put some heavy hitters on there. So it's just a completely new day in terms of education. So.
Well, it's a different day. That's
different
for
day.
sure.
Yeah, see, I think the word of the day, or the week, or the era is corporalist.
Yeah.
That's obviously what Mayor Emanuel will be about. I mean, if you look at it, this bringing in Jean-Claude is about charter schools.
Definitely.
If you look at his economic team, it's privatization experts. I mean, it's all about big money and Wall Street, from what I can tell.
Penny Pritzker on the board.
Yes,
now.
yes. I mean,
David Vitale. Who was with the school district before. He was the chief operating officer for a while, and someone from the Urban League. No one from the grassroots.
No, this is Mayor
community.
Daley on steroids. I mean, Mayor Daley did pinstripe patronage. I don't know what we can call this. Is going to be Wall Street patronage or something.
So this is what Mayor Daley could only have dreamed.
Right, exactly.
We even have the return of Forrest Claypool.
Oh yeah, I know. The guy who brought us standard parking,
right?
As the privatization of the parking garages to standard.
And now he's going to run the CTA. So
exactly.
it's the continuation of the daily reign. But you know what's interesting when you say that, Monroe, is that for a long time there was this debate about whether Mayor Daley was really a Republican,
right,
given some of his stances, and
right.
maybe we can wonder the same thing about Rahm Emanuel.
Oh,
Somehow reform in education, for example, has come to mean charter schools, high stakes testing, blaming the teachers.
Right.
Isn't that kind of the Republican
very.
agenda?
That's become the one. You know, you cannot just turn everything into a charter and think, okay, well that's going to fix everything, because a school just being a charter is not a guarantee of a good school, and people keep, you know, thinking there's going to be this silver bullet. Well, we'll make everything charters, and we'll pay teachers according to test scores, and you're just asking for cheating at some point. You know, if you're if your pay depends on test scores, or you know, we'll make everything a charter. We'll have all these high stakes tests, and it just
nearly 20 years ago
doesn't guarantee anything.
When I was working at BBM TV, and Daley was over there doing Madigan's show, and I happened to run into him, and at that time he was thinking about vouchers. And charters and vouchers are the same thing. I told him, what you're going to do is turn the Chicago public school system into Cook County Hospital. And that's what charter does too. It becomes, it's a dumping ground for those who can't do it. Exactly.
Yeah, but the charter school, in their defense to a certain degree, there are some good charter schools.
Yeah, right.
And but you're going to get the kids whose parents are, you know, at least have some initiative to go and get them in a charter school and
but what
push
does
them
it do
and so
for
forth.
the public schools, the neighborhood schools?
It doesn't do anything for neighborhood schools.
What it does, it makes them the schools of last resort.
Well,
so
yes, it makes
In fact, it makes them worse.
And there is voucher legislation that's come up again this year that is specifically for Chicago.
Right.
So
well, I don't want to lose too much
too.
focus on Jean-Claude Brizard, because I actually kind of a throw out here to Eric Zorn, who put together a huge compendium of stories from both Rochester and Chicago about this. And it took a couple hours of my time last night just sitting reading some of these things. But the cabinet, and apparently this is factual as far as we can tell. This is from WHAM in Rochester. The cabinet increased to 36 administrators and 14 secretaries for a total of $5.05 million in the administrative budget, which is the highest ever in Rochester. And as you point out, it's a pretty small school district compared to what we have here. Graduates getting ready for college, 41%. In New York City, only 41% reach federal standards for what they consider, and that's kind of a subjective thing, but quote unquote ready for college. But anyway, if it's 41% for the state of New York, Rochester is at 5%, and it hasn't changed.
Well, and you're not going to come in and in a couple years, you know, you go from 5% to 10%. It just doesn't turn around that quickly. And he's not going to be able to come in here and start padding central office because there's no money. And people wanted an educator.
That didn't stop Ron Huberman. So as Eric Zorn said, he's got the right experience for the job, right?
Yeah, he's got practice.
Got rid of people. Ron Huberman did. I mean, there's like no one in central office.
Yeah.
Really, there. I mean, central office is not. It's not like some big, you know, pork barrel thing over there anymore. I mean, because there's just no money, and there's even less money this year. So.
Well, nevertheless, I mean, the thing is that I don't want to sit here and try to you know, destroy the character of a guy who hasn't even arrived here yet. That just seems so churlish and weird.
Right.
The point is that what I'm wondering is, from a political point of view, did Rahm Emanuel understand that he was hiring somebody who was going to be this controversial this quickly, or did he care? I mean,
He's, you know, if one thing, and I don't know Emanuel, but come on, I mean, the guy is elected mayor. He interviewed people. I'm sure he knew the guy would be controversial. All you have to do is do a Google on him, and you know he's going to be controversial. But again, he doesn't care because he fits with his philosophy.
Exactly, it's part of the he loves charter schools. The new superintendent loves it, and so he will carry out the charter school mission that Arnie Duncan embraced, therefore Obama embraced, and Rahm embraces.
So this is a kind of a race to the top. This is compatible with race to the top.
And Rahm must feel like
longer school day.
Right.
And all,
Yeah.
you know,
Rahm must feel like he'll carry out his agenda and be loyal. And Rahm probably loves the fact that the teachers gave him a no confidence vote there. He probably thinks that that's going to play well with the voters. He probably wasn't aware that some of the statistics that Brizard has been touting actually aren't true. Aren't you know? And Rahm himself has been saying a lot about the success of charter schools in Chicago that just factually is not true, as Eric Zorn pointed out as well. So that's where maybe there's a little bit of a
and I don't know if you saw Ben Jarofsky's piece,
Yeah.
where he talked about how they charter schools just skim off the cream, and then anybody who doesn't fit up to their standards, they dump them back into the neighborhood schools.
well,
So
and there's
Well, you guys
also an
did a lot
issue
of work
about
on that,
them being financially viable over the long term because they get less per student than what is spent in the traditional public schools, and a lot of them rely heavily on private money. And how long is that going to last?
Yeah. Of course, it really does raise for me the question, just to sort of rephrase the question I asked a minute ago, isn't it possible that this is exactly the effect that Mayor-elect Emanuel wanted? He wanted this splash in the news media about, oh, this guy is frightening. He's going to frighten all the teachers. You got what did Karen Lewis say yesterday? She said, "I'm going out to buy some boxing gloves now." Right?
I don't think Karen Lewis is too frightened of anybody. So
No, but I mean, isn't that we're just none of us know. We're not in the transition meetings. We have no idea what's going on. We're just a bunch of
and
speculators.
those who are in the meeting have been sworn to secrecy.
And
It's all been
if anyone told you they knew what was going on,
they didn't.
they're not to be believed.
Right.
But isn't that an interesting possibility, though, that that's exactly what he wants? He wants to get the teachers union saying these kind of quickly reactive, like, "Oh, the sky is falling" kind of thing, because that plays well to.
I would think that he would have thought it through to exactly that degree, because this is a guy who, in the press conferences he's been having announcing appointees this week, has had tape placed on the floor with their initials for where they are to stand.
And they're and they're not allowed to speak.
And they have not been allowed to speak.
Exactly.
Brizard read a brief statement, and then
Seen, but
Rahm
don't be
answered all
heard.
of his questions. So you would think that if he's being that kind of calculating and micromanaging and so on, he would have thought very deeply about having this kind of reaction.
What has been also interesting to me is the reaction that's been coming from Rochester in the last news cycle, in the last 12 or 24 hours, where you've been seeing the Sun-Times reporting this morning that one of the board members said something about, "I think we should sue his ass." That's a quote unquote.
For $100,000.
Right, because the contract says that even this 3-month-old contract he had, or whatever it was, that they can break the contract if they mutually agree to break the contract, and Jean-Claude's interpretation of that was, "I'll send you a letter saying I quit."
Right.
And they're saying, "Well, okay, we'll send you a lawyer to figure out."
Right. Well, the other interesting thing for Rochester is reports point out how he hasn't done much for the school district. But at the same time, the people in Rochester are upset because he's leaving. They said he didn't give it enough chance.
Some people liked it.
Yes, he does.
Some
and
people
we have to
liked
be careful to make that point.
Right.
He had his fans in Rochester,
and you can't blame people for taking a better job. I mean, you just go fight it out, and
Right. But nevertheless, I thought this was an interesting quote this morning from one of the school board members. This is a direct quote. "Furthermore, given the ambitious manner in which Jean-Claude has implemented reforms, we feel the proverbial apple cart has been completely overturned. While there are signs of progress that suggest that the apple cart is upright again, we maintain that most of the apples are still on the floor, and a great deal of work needs to be done." So, I mean, it would be a cheap shot to say that in the process of upsetting the apple cart, the upsetting part is the easy part. It's the restoring the apple cart that's hard. So.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, it's much easier to throw a brick than to put in a
Yeah,
plate glass
yeah.
window.
So anyway, we have an interesting appointment and a I think you'd have to say powerful board.
Oh,
and,
definitely.
And that could be a good thing, right?
Well, that could be good. I mean, there are certainly powerful people that keep him from making too many, I would think, crazy moves in public. But you know, there are some things that are, other than the fact that there's no like community people on there. You do have someone who's Penny Pritzker, board of the Chicago Public Education Fund, which does provide money to the school district. Academy for Urban School Leadership, David Vitale is on their board, and now he's on the school board. So there are a lot of interconnections. And
Well, it's going to be a different pattern than we've seen before, I think. I mean, or it's going to be, is this, I've been trying to figure this out in my own head. Is this kind of like Ron Huberman squared? Is that what we're seeing here, or is it something completely different?
Ron Huberman didn't have any education experience. I mean, he was a CTA.
Right,
he had no education experience, and the board people didn't change.
Yeah,
I mean, he changed, but the people on the board didn't change.
And Jean-Claude Brizard definitely has education experience.
Right, he has education background. He was in New York City for like 2 decades.
And has been a teacher and a principal.
Well, the CPS establishment is in for a rough ride.
You think so?
Yeah, right. Whether you're talking about administrators or union people or whoever, they've got some interesting days ahead.
Yes,
yeah, just by bringing in someone who's not from Chicago.
Right, right, and who is obviously not afraid to upset the apple cart.
Right.
Yeah. And I would leave with just one more statement that I pulled off online last night from these. This is 3 members of the school board and the president of the school board. This is a statement that they issued saying, significantly, however, our support for the superintendent has not been unqualified. At times we've disagreed with him and we've repeatedly challenged him and his staff. Over the years, we've had significant differences on such items as school closures and staff reductions. We've insisted that he listen with greater care to our parents, our teachers, and our union leaders, because we know people believe that you care when you care enough to listen. So that's a kind of a weird thing to happen when big city administrators change like that the president of the school board issues a statement saying...
The Rochester School Board is elected. And they actually do go out and pick somebody for CEO. It's not the mayor, going out to pick somebody. So obviously they like the guy enough to pick him. And, the person, it sounds like he's someone whose ideas they agreed with, but they thought his manner is too...
Well, and they also sound a little bit like the jilted bride to me.
It's interesting they felt compelled to issue that.
I just thought, I mean, I don't know, in my years of being around news, I haven't seen anything quite like that before.
I haven't either.
That really did seem almost tearful. You hurt our feelings.
Right, exactly, right.
So what else you want to talk about? We've beaten this one to death. You want to talk about Blago or what?
I want to mention that my paper,
your paper,
old
Catalyst.
paper, the Sun Times.
Oh, your old
my
paper.
Previous
your old paper.
Won a Pulitzer. So journalism is alive and well in Chicago.
I'm kidding. Of course, we all know, and that's a really good thing. And it was for a very good series, a well-written series. But as long as we're all sitting around.
We need good journalism, given all
Don't we though? But as long as we're kind of sitting around being a little bit on the churlish side, I'll raise this, and you guys can all just disown me and walk away and leave me here feeling like a fool.
Right.
But I just want to throw this out. Aren't the Pulitzers kind of a political statement in a way? I mean,
very.
So when the Sun Times wins it, it's a political statement.
And I want to be very careful about this. I love the Chicago Sun.
No, okay.
I think we all do. But it's like, okay, here's my premise. If the Sun Times was a very fat, wealthy, big corporate newspaper that had, hundreds of millions of dollars sitting around in desk drawers, would they have given them a Pulitzer?
Then the Tribune, and then the Washington Post, and the New York Times.
When the Tribune won Pulitzers, those weren't always necessarily the best work that the Tribune had done in this world.
In the 10 years I was at the Tribune, I did 4 investigations. all 4 were nominated for Pulitzers, and it was explained to me painfully how political it is behind the scenes, especially after I didn't win each time.
I want to be really careful. I feel like I'm like hanging out over the edge here. I am not in any way criticizing the Sun-Times or the work they did. What I'm saying is quite the opposite. When I first heard it, I thought, cool. The Pulitzers are saying, here's a really struggling paper that we want to support in a big city that should have a paper like that. We're going to recognize their work.
Oh no, that goes into play, you know, with many African Americans, for example, who have won the Pulitzer over there. There is this belief among some of us that they're getting the good housekeeping stamp of approval. This is a safe Negro. So no, it goes it plays on many different levels. Yeah.
So you can't win. I mean, that's a bad pun, but I mean, you can't win either way. If
you don't get it, well, you just weren't, you know, and if you
weren't
do
good
get
enough,
it, well,
it's
like
it's political.
It's political.
If you get it,
so.
it's political.
But it is political. I know it is political. It just depends, because they do rotate the judges.
Yeah.
And so it just depends on who's judging. It's like anything else. You know, the Oscars are political for that matter.
And a lot of times, you know, you have judges that aren't from Chicago, aren't from the cities that their work they're evaluating.
Right.
So when the Tribune won a Pulitzer for its work investigating the city council many years ago, Anne Marie Lipinski was one of the award winners there. There was a lot of criticism, or a lot of skepticism, because, well, this kind of stuff happens every day in Chicago. But to an outsider, it seems like, oh my God, I can't believe they've dug this stuff up.
Corruption.
So,
and they had to work so hard and long at it.
You just hold your bucket out there. No, come on now, you guys are getting mean. That's not what we mean by this.
Exactly. It's so dark.
But it's just to say the skepticism, I think, has been dished out with equal fairness.
If there's any possible way that I can regain any sort of composure here and say to Frank Main and Mr. Conkle and I'm sorry, I forgot the photographer's name.
The last name
John
is
Kim.
John
Kim.
Yeah.
It was a great series, and I'm really, really happy that they won. And
No,
nothing we've said here should
the
take away from any of
Sun-Times
that.
and the LA Times.
And the LA Times.
For their piece. I mean, that story definitely was, I thought, a winner.
Yeah.
But which meant it was a very, very sad day at the Tribune, because I think they consider the LA Times, even though it's a sister paper, you know, they have this real sibling, almost visceral hatred of each other.
Or as Les Payne explained it to me, the attitude within the company is that the snake swallowed the pig.
Right.
Instead of the other word around, the LA Times was so much better a newspaper than the Tribune.
I want to try to keep moving here if we can. So nobody's biting on Blago. Nobody wants to talk about Blago? Do we care? Does anybody care about the second choice?
He's the Donald Trump of Chicago.
That's pretty good.
What can he say that would shock anybody at this point, or that people would just not go, well, there he goes again, you know?
Well, he said in today's papers, he said he might give the closing defense argument himself. Of course, I don't know why a guy who's already been convicted of lying and someone who legislators came to mistrust so much they forced him to sign memorandums of understanding that the media still gives him some kind of credibility, and that's a headline.
No, because like Trump, he's entertainment.
Well,
that's true.
That's true.
So
then put him in the comics.
No, and unfortunately, no. But what's happened to
know.
journalism? I mean, okay, we were talking about the politics, but what's happened to mainstream journalism is, in its shrinking and troubled time period, which may be forever or maybe a passing fad, we don't know yet, but it's lowered the bar a great deal to where that's where it instead of going to the meaty, important stories, they go for the entertainment factor. And so you get people quoting Trump in this birther stuff, you know, which is ridiculous, and everybody knows it. And you get Blago.
If we had another half hour, I would challenge you on that. And I'll bet Steve would jump in with me on this too, because I don't like to get too nostalgic about how great journalism was a few years ago.
It was better. No, it was not great. I'm not a.
Well, an interesting sub thing to this, which this is just a weird tangent, but I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who was at a public hearing in, I can't remember where, Northbrook or Northfield, on some civic issue. And he was saying that for the first time ever, and he's been doing a lot of this stuff for a long time, he said there were 4 reporters there. There was somebody there from Trib Local, there was somebody there from Patch, there was somebody from the Pioneer Press and some other organization. But there were 4 actual reporters covering this story. And he said, 2 years ago, you would never get anybody coming out to one of these kind of public hearings. So maybe journalism is reinventing itself at this very basic sort of grassroots level. I'm not sure that we're all happy about the fact that these folks are being paid $3 an hour.
Right. That's the problem. It's not it's just the lack of pay, and then no one stays in it. They get their journalism degree and do it for 3 months, and they're gone.
Well, we went through the golden age of journalism, and that's more what I was referring to. Is when salaries were good. And there was this pretense of fairness and balance. Because if you go back to the penny papers, back when the immigrants were coming over and they were fighting for audience, it was yellow journalism.
Oh, absolutely.
And and that's sort of everybody's. We're actually going back to those days, and the era that we came through as young journalists was an outlier, really. I mean, that wasn't the way.
I think that's right.
Yeah, that wasn't the way journalism has been
in the history, because I mean, in a way, we're almost kind of going back to like the founding fathers' days. We're all becoming pamphleteers.
Right, exactly.
That's true. I mean, I think it's a complicated picture. Though. On one hand, you've got what you're describing, which is this hyper-local trend, which I'm not a huge fan of, because I think it's kind of a lot of Chamber of Commerce type journalism, and kind of focus on the smallest things that are the easiest to do before financial reasons. But on the other hand, we saw that ProPublica won a Pulitzer this year too. They're second, and they're an online only, which I think may have been the first online only organization to win a Pulitzer. And they're doing all kinds of really deep, sophisticated reporting that can only be done through digital technology, through the way they're using documents and spreadsheets and so
Steve,
on.
I'm sorry to say that the clock has called time out on us all. We're going to have to cut it out right there. But that's such an interesting topic, and we'll bring it. We'll come back and do it again. Steve Rhodes, Monroe Anderson, Lorraine Forte, thank you all so much for being here. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the show today, and we'll do it again sometime soon, but we'll be back again next week. You've been watching Chicago Newsroom right here on CAN TV. It's a community service of CAN TV. You can find us here on cable every Thursday, and you can see this and other programs on can.blip.tv. They all in the control room. They always say he's going to screw it up, and I did it again. can.blip.tv. Join us there. See us on the podcasts, and we'll see you next time on Chicago Newsroom. I'm Ken Davis. Thanks for watching.